They say love saves you, protects you, feels like home. But what happens when the person who gives you shelter is also the person who silently controls the walls around you? She never asked for help. She never wanted to feel like a burden, like someone who needed saving. But life doesn't always give choices. Sometimes, it forces you to accept a hand you never wanted to hold. Her family was drowning, debts, hospital bills, the kind that steals sleep and dignity at the same time. She fought alone until she couldn't anymore. And then he appeared, like a miracle, wearing a quiet smile and a promise. Let me take care of you. Let me take care of them. She didn't fall in love that day, but she fell into hope. She told herself this was fate. This was kindness. This was destiny choosing her when the world had abandoned her. She believed him. She trusted his intentions. And when he asked her to marry him, not after passion, but after loyalty and concern, she said yes. Not because she dreamed of love, but because she feared losing everything she loved. What she didn't know was that he didn't just save her life. He needed her in ways she never imagined. He didn't enter her world by accident. He entered with purpose, with history, with a truth he wasn't ready to show. The thing about secrets is, they don't stay quiet forever. Some truths wait in silence, until one moment tears the world apart. This is the story of a woman who thought she married her protector, only to discover he had protected her long before she ever knew him. And the day she opened that leather-bound diary in his study was the day the illusion of her life shattered. Was it love? Was it obsession? Was it destiny? Or a plan written long before she ever felt chosen? Sometimes being saved feels like being trapped. And sometimes, the person you call safety is the reason you never learned to stand on your own. At first, everything felt calm. Not magical. Not passionate. Just safe. A roof her family no longer feared losing. Medicine her mother could finally afford. Food on the table that didn't come with guilt. He didn't shout. He didn't demand. He didn't cage her in loud ways. Instead, it was the quiet things. The way he always knew where she was, not because he asked, but because somehow he already knew. The way he smiled when she mentioned going back to work, then gently reminded her, "You don't need to worry about that anymore. I'll take care of everything." It wasn't control at first. It felt like comfort, like someone finally saying, "You're not alone." But slowly, comfort turned into a leash made of silk. Not tight enough to choke, just tight enough that she couldn't run. Calls she didn't make would appear on her phone records. Gifts would arrive before she mentioned wanting them. Friends she used to talk to faded away, not because she chose to, but because life around her rearranged itself without her noticing. He loved her gently, but intensely, like she was something fragile, like she'd break without him. She would wake up in warm sheets, surrounded by luxury and affection, yet feel a strange pull inside her, like she was living someone else's dream, and slowly losing her own. Some nights, when he thought she was asleep, he would sit beside her quietly, watching her face with a sadness she didn't understand, as if she was a memory he was afraid to lose again. And then came the day she walked into his study. She never entered that room before. He always kept it locked. He said it was his sanctuary, his private space, and she respected that. But that afternoon, the door was left slightly open, and fate, or truth, was waiting on the other side. A leather-bound diary sat on his desk, old, worn, pages yellowed like they had carried years of unsaid feelings. Her fingers trembled as she touched it. She knew she shouldn't open it. She knew some things change everything. But sometimes, the heart touches truth before the mind stops it. And when she opened that diary, the first page didn't carry his name. It carried hers. Her name, written with the kind of tenderness that breaks you. And beneath it, a sentence that turned her bones cold. "I waited years for you to come back." Her pulse stilled. Her breath froze. A memory she never lived. Someone remembering her more than she remembered herself. This wasn't a love that started when he walked into her life. This was a love that began long before she ever knew his name. But how? Why? What did he mean by come back? Her hands shook harder as she flipped the pages. And every line whispered a truth she wasn't ready for. He knew her story before she ever told him. He knew her pain before she showed it. He knew her scars, her fears, her childhood, her losses. She wasn't chosen by chance. She was found, tracked, waited for. Not because he saved her, but because he believed she once saved him. And suddenly, the walls of safety felt like painted bars. The love she thought she agreed to felt like a love she never saw being built. Brick by silent brick, memory by hidden memory. Her breath broke before her tears did. Because in that moment, she didn't know what hurt more. The idea that he loved her long before she ever knew him. Or the fear that she never truly had a choice. She stood there, frozen, diary in her hands. A life she thought she chose. Suddenly felt like a life chosen for her. When he finally appeared at the doorway, there was no anger in his eyes. Only a quiet ache. Like he always feared this moment would come. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't rush to defend himself. He just looked at her. Like losing her was a wound he had already lived once. You weren't supposed to find that today. He whispered, voice trembling with something that sounded like regret. And truth pressed against his chest like a confession waiting for breath. She tried to speak, but the words felt trapped behind the shock crawling up her spine. How do you question someone about a past you didn't even know existed? Her voice finally cracked out. Soft, trembling, almost afraid of the answer. Who was I to you? He closed his eyes, as if opening them would make her disappear. Again. You were the only person who ever believed in me. He said quietly. Before life broke me. Before I knew money could fix things. And destroy them at the same time. He walked toward her slowly, like approaching a wound. Not a wife. We were kids, he whispered. You don't remember. But you stood by me when no one else did. A memory flickered in her chest. Hazy, distant, like sunlight seen through water. A boy crying behind the school wall. A little girl offering half her biscuit. A moment too small for the world to see. But big enough to save someone's heart forever. Was that him? Was she his one moment of kindness in a lonely childhood? He waited years. He watched her life fall apart. And when she broke, he stepped in like fate. When really, he was the past wearing the clothes of destiny. I didn't trap you, he said quietly. I gave you the life you deserved. But love is not a favor. And freedom, once taken softly, feels heavier than a chain. Her voice cracked again. This time not from shock, but from the weight of a truth she never chose. You could have told me. He swallowed, eyes shining with the kind of pain that comes from loving too deeply, too secretly. I was afraid. He whispered, afraid you wouldn't choose me back. And that was the moment her heart broke differently. Not from betrayal, not from anger, but from the realization that two souls can drown in love. One from longing, and one from not knowing it was there. He loved her like memory. She loved him like obligation. And neither of them knew how to meet in the middle. Silence sat between them. Heavy, suffocating, filled with every unsaid truth. She looked at the man who saved her world, and realized he had been holding on to her like a promise. He was terrified life would steal again. But safety without choice isn't safety. Love without freedom isn't love. And for the first time, she didn't feel trapped by his love. She felt lost inside it. She placed the diary down gently, as if the truth inside it was fragile, and could shatter the room if she handled it wrong. He stood in front of her, hands trembling at his sides, eyes searching for forgiveness, in a place that wasn't ready to forgive. Not because she hated him, but because she didn't know who she was in this story anymore. Her voice came out soft, not out of anger, but out of exhaustion. You should have trusted me with the truth. He took a slow breath, like truth was something that hurt to hold, yet hurt more to lose. I didn't want you to feel obligated. He whispered, I wanted you to stay because you felt something, not because you owed me anything. And that was the tragedy, that he thought love could grow from a seed planted in silence. Love never blooms in shadows. It needs light, honesty, choice. She looked at him. This man who carried her pain like his own, who lifted her family when she couldn't, who loved her quietly for so long, that his heart forgot where his love ended, and where his fear began. You didn't trap me, she whispered, voice shaking. But you never let me choose. His jaw tightened. A man fighting tears he didn't want her to see. I was scared, he admitted, raw, real, like a wound finally open. I thought if I waited long enough, if I stood close enough, you would see me. You would remember me. You would choose me. Sometimes people hurt you, not because they want power, but because they're afraid of losing you, before they ever truly had you. But her heart wasn't angry. It was aching, because she realized something terrifying. He didn't steal her freedom. She never fought for it. She accepted comfort, because the world outside felt too heavy to carry. She let support turn into dependency. She let gratitude become quiet surrender. And now she stood there, grateful, loved, safe, yet feeling like she had lost pieces of herself in someone else's devotion. Her voice cracked again. Not sharp, not cold, just unbearably human. I don't know who I am in your story. Silence again. Thick, heavy, full of hearts trying not to break. He stepped closer, not to convince her, not to hold her, but to let her see the truth in his eyes. You're not a chapter, he whispered. You're the book I never stopped reading. And her heart broke in a way love stories rarely show. Not from betrayal, not from cruelty, but from a love that was too big, too heavy, too misunderstood. Love can wound gently too, not with claws, but with the weight of emotions never spoken on time. She looked at him and realized she didn't hate him. She just needed to find herself again. With a breath that tasted like loss and courage mixed together, she whispered the hardest truth. I need to learn who I am without being saved. His eyes closed, and you could almost hear his chest crack open, like hope collapsing quietly in the dark. He didn't stop her. He didn't beg her. Real love never cages, even when it aches to hold on. If leaving helps you breathe, he murmured, voice breaking, then I'll let you go, even if it ruins me. And that's how two people in love stood in the same room and still learned what distance truly feels like. Sometimes love doesn't end with anger. Sometimes it ends with understanding, and a pain so gentle, it feels like goodbye whispered against your skin. Asha tried to stay calm, but her heart was racing. She could still feel the warmth of Rayhan's hand from moments ago. And now the silence between them felt like a storm waiting to explode. She didn't want to believe what she saw, but the image kept replaying in her mind like a nightmare she couldn't wake from. She swallowed hard, fighting the lump in her throat, and spoke slowly. Rayhan, I saw you. I saw everything at that cafe. Her voice trembled, but she didn't look away. She needed answers. She needed truth. Rayhan froze. His smile faded, his breath caught, and suddenly the world between them felt fragile. He didn't deny it. He didn't even attempt to lie. Instead, he lowered his gaze like a man carrying a weight too heavy for his shoulders. Asha, he whispered, voice cracked with regret. It's not what you think. But those words, those same tired words people use when they have something to hide, made her heart ache even more. She stepped back, tears burning beneath her lashes. Then tell me what it is, she said, voice sharp but broken. Tell me why you were holding her hand. Why you looked at her the way you once looked at me.